Hello, and thank you very much for attending another session of our RM Smart Investing. Today, I thought we introduce something different. It's all about money, and to understand what is money, what is it, this thing that plays such a big role in our lives. And what I thought is we're gonna have a little journey in understanding the history of money, the purpose of it, and then we go a little deeper as far as more of our belief system. So with that in mind, I'd like to start this. I think this is such a, interesting quote from Francis Bacon. Money is a great servant, but a bad master. And I think that tells us in a nutshell what is really money. So in our first half, we will look at, again, what is money? What is its characteristics? What is its purpose? When was money invented? A little history, again, we take a journey, look at the bartering and how the coins and metal started, the paper money, banks, gold standards, and modern day money. And then, as I mentioned, the second half, we will look at some of the belief systems. So what is this is called money? So believe it or not, money often has no intrinsic value by itself. And instead, money is it's a tool, it's an object that has a value placed on it, which allows for the trade of goods and services. So some money, such as metal coins, they actually have value in the, again, the value of it's the material used, the metal, let's say, in this situation. However, paper money, which is mostly used now, is more common in the modern world and typically has no real value. And throughout the evolution of money, currency has taken several different forms, which we'll go over that. But what are the characteristics of the money? How can I choose? Can I just come up with something, an idea, and say, well, this is my money? And there are some characteristics to which is common as far as considering something as money. The first thing is the durability. What that means is it has to have duration, it has to be strong to be able to, as I said, to be able to, as mentioned, have the duration of the usage. Second part is portability. Third is divisibility, recognizability, scarcity. You cannot have, I mean, we talk about funny money. Let's say we think about, let's say, Zimbabwe, when you have lots of something, then it's worthless. So it's that scarcity plays a role, acceptability, and uniformity. So those are the uniformity. So those are the important characteristics of the money. But what is the purpose of money? How we can define, and why do we have to have that money? Well, the first thing is the store of economic value. It has some kind of value on its own, a medium of exchange. And the third part is the unit of economic measurement. So this is the purpose of money. So again, when we look at the different types of money, we want to have these purposes and those characteristics. So let's start with seeing when was money invented, a little journey in the history for the next 15, 20 minutes. So before money was invented, people bartered, and they didn't have anything, so they would use their goods for services, or services for services, or goods for goods. And it wasn't until about 5,000 years ago that Mesopotamian people, which is today's Iraq, and they created the shekels, and which is considered the first known form of currency. Gold and silver coins date back to around 650 to 600 BC, when stamp coins were used to pay armies. Some evidence suggests that metal coins may be as old as 1250 BC. So basically, our journey is going to take us from bartering to gold and metal coins, paper money, plastic cards, electronic money, and then cryptocurrency. So that will be the order of the things that we will work on. So what was used before money was invented? And that's when there was no currency. So people traded goods and services for what they needed. One farmer might trade livestock for vegetables, while another may trade labor or lumber for livestock. These transactions were the early building blocks of our modern economy and would go on to create the future of money that the world knows today. Now, as far as the bartering, the history of bartering dates back all the way back to 6000 BC. As a matter of fact, there are things that we have found out even 80,000 years ago, and there was the civilizations that start using. But more formal, it would be about 6000 BC, or even maybe further to 10,000 years ago. Again, these Mesopotamian tribes introduced the concept to the Phoenicians, and goods were exchanged for each other in these absence of the money, including things like tea, salt, weapon, and food. As the time went on, bartering continued to evolve, with colonial Americans trading pelts, crops, and muskets. So again, what the barter is, before monetary system, humans again relied entirely on barter to exchange goods and services. If you grew potatoes and I made shoes, for instance, we would need to determine how many shoes are worth how many potatoes in order to trade. If we couldn't agree, both of us lose. So if we wanted to trade, it would also require that both of us want what the other produces. And if I'm allergic, let's say you're talking about allergies to potatoes, and you have enough pairs of shoes already, both of us again lose. So one of the common things, it goes back, as I mentioned, about 10,000 years ago, after the invention of agriculture around 10,000 years ago, people have started to use plants and as animals as a form of money. Namely, in this situation, we call them cattle and grain. Ancient Mesopotamians even had a banking system where you could deposit cattle and grain for safekeeping. While these forms are more uniform than barter would be, there are many inherent flaws with this system. And it goes back to what we talked about, durability and the limited supply. So it's the scarcity. So those two things would have created problems. So if I use these as a store of value, when the cattle dies or the grain goes bad, I lose all my money. There's also an issue of supply. In order to use grains for money, I must either grow grains or trade for it. And using a grain-based system of money means that grain farmers can produce more money every year and have an advantage over everyone else. A little tidbit, that little fun fact, that in many English financial terms, like we talk about capital, stock, fee, buck, they're all derived from these animal trade origins. So just a little, again, fun fact. In some other civilizations, they use seashells. Now, given that humans mostly create civilization near the water, seashells are a fairly logical next step and have been used for over 3,000 years. Now, cowrie shells were especially common given that they are fairly uniform, easy to transport, and more durable over time than grain or cattle. So, of course, seashells come with their own drawbacks, and seashells are not that physically durable. They are easily broken, and especially after they dry out, that becomes a problem. Seashells also suffer from the issue of virtually unlimited supply, and it goes back to that scarcity we spoke about. In order for money to have a stable value over time, the supply cannot change very much. The issue with using seashells as money is that someone could always go to the beach and collect vast amounts of money without providing value to anyone. And again, the reason I'm kind of bringing these up is, now we're talking about, for instance, the inflation problem. I'm talking about printing money. And you can see again that supply comes into the picture. When you have too much of something, you lose the value. Now, the cowrie shells, again, another fun fact, that they were actually accepted as a legal tender in some parts of Africa until the 20th century, believe it or not. So and South America, for instance, or and in Americas, the Central South Americas, the Mayans and Aztecs used them as money. They used cocoa beans because they were very valuable and very protective of their beans. They paid for food, clothes, taxes, gifts, and offering to their gods using cocoa beans. Having a pocket full of beans was like having a wallet full of cash. As far as these Mesoamericans, were concerned, money really did grow on trees. So we fast forward and we look at the situation with metals that we talked about durability. So before modern coins were invented, metals in different forms was used as currency. Around 3,000 years ago, at the end of the Stone Age, for instance, bronze and copper calorie limitations were used as money in China. Metal tools such as knives and spades were also used as money. Then the use of metal was a huge step forward for money. Metals are far more durable than seashells or cattle and can last for tens or hundreds of years. Depending on the metal used, the supply is also very limited compared to those earlier forms of money. So metal is durable, fairly portable, semi-divisible, and fairly limited. Now, history of the money continues with the coins. Now, here we go. The first metal money dates back to 1000 BC China. These coins were made from stamped pieces of valuable metals such as bronze and copper. And early iterations of coins were also used by ancient Greeks, starting around 650 BC. Over time, these coins would evolve to be made from silver and gold that we associate with money today. Coins were a huge milestone in the history of money because they were one of the first currencies that allowed people to pay by count, number of counts, rather than weight. The early coins throughout history, there has been lots of different coins used in different regions. For instance, in about 500 BC, the first round coin were created. Coins were created and stamped with gods and emperors for authenticity. In 800 AD, Charlemagne issued the silver penny, which was the standard coin in Western Europe from 794 to 1200 AD. By the mid-13th century, the shilling and pound became widely used to describe larger amounts of pennies. As the value of currency has changed over the years, the creation of larger forms of currency has been an important part of our history of money. And then it comes paper money. Now, while the first paper money was created in China in 700 to 800 AD, it would be a long time before paper currency was commonly used. According to Britannica, the first country to use paper money was China, but it was only used until about 1455. The lighter weight of paper money allowed for international trade, which created both problems, distrust and currency wars, and opportunities as well, the ability to trade in new places for new goods. After China stopped using its paper money during the mid-15th century, coins once again became the most popular form of money in the country and the world. Now, again, another tidbit, Europe wouldn't learn about paper money until Marco Polo's travels to the Far East in 1275. And I just mentioned about currency wars, and again, the creation of this paper money would eventually lead to currency wars, which occur when the leaders of different nations attempt to devalue their own currency. In turn, this increases demand and helps stimulate their economy. That means because it's cheaper, other places want their money. While this occurs in today's foreign exchange market, the signature of a currency war is the fact that several nations are involved in the devaluing of other nations' currencies. However, currency wars can have negative consequences for the countries involved, including obviously currency volatility. So based on that, now we fast forward and come to the introduction of banks. The first banks were started by the Roman Empire around, believe it or not, 1800 BC. These banks offered loans and accepted deposits from individuals, but would later disappear with the collapse of the empire. By the turn of the 19th century, banks had become respectable organizations within communities and learned the concept of the fractional service banking, reserve banking. Since individuals didn't all withdraw all their money at once, banks learned that they could loan more money than they actually had, which was a huge step in the history of money. Again, I'm introducing these historical events to kind of bring you to the modern day. I mean, this paragraph I just read, you can go back to 2006, 2007, 2008, the financial crisis. You see how things have evolved, but it has the roots in the history. And, when we abuse the system, things can fall apart. Or the same thing with the too much of money or devaluation that you see the countries try to do when they have lots of loans, they have lots of debt, and the countries devalue their currency to basically to get away, or they go on default. So that's, again, making you familiar how the things are happening. The first bank in the US, the Bank of the United States, was established in 1791. And then now everybody's printing money. So what could we have in standard? So the gold standard, actually in 1816, gold was made the standard of value in the country of England. What this means is that each banknote represents a certain amount of gold. So only a limited number of banknotes can be printed. So that gave the value to that currency. This gave previously unbacked currencies some semblance of value and stability. By 1900, the United States had followed suit with the Gold Standard Act. Well, this would lead to the US establishing the central bank that plays an important role in the economy today. The gold standard ended in 1930s, actually 1933, due to depression and the devaluation of gold, because President Roosevelt at that time didn't want the bank run and people hoarding the gold, and he asked everyone had to give up their gold and gold coins. So let's move forward, come to the modern day money, and then the introduction of the credit cards and debit cards. When it comes to convenience, obviously, a lot of people use credit cards and debit cards in today's world, and it's a popular choice. A debit card is loaded with a set amount of money from your bank account, with money being removed from your account after each purchase you make. Credit cards are a little different in the sense that they don't carry a balance that they don't have to put in. And instead, lenders can choose a credit limit to set on your card, allowing you to spend up to a certain amount before you have to start paying it back to continue using your car. So I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Again, it shows the abuse and misuse sometimes, and like anything else, when we have something and if you cannot control it, that can go above and beyond, and then that creates problems. So credit cards were first issued to consumers in the 1920s and have grown in popularity obviously ever since. And actually, to be fair, in 1955 we had the Diners Club, which officially really offered in the standard credit card, and then the rest is history. In 2020, of course, credit cards were the most commonly used payment method in the US. And we have online payments. Money used to be exchanged physically, whether people paid with coins or paper money. However, with the internet boom and growth of e-commerce, online payments have increasingly, as you know, again, become much more convenient. Today, online payments are one of the most popular ways to pay for goods and services. With online payments, you can simply enter a credit or debit card number on your website. And of course, if you have Apple, or you can actually, again, we have the credit-less payments. And like payments can also be made using a bank account number and routing number, and that used to take several days, but it's much instantaneous now. When we make online payment through a debit or credit, your card is typically charged right away. And then we come to the digital currency, and that's where we are now. In the 1990s, digital currency tried and failed to get off the ground, but in the 2000s, things have changed, allowing it to grow in popularity and widespread use. In fact, digital currencies such as cryptocurrency and virtual currency play an important role in the economy today, especially when you talk to the younger generation. These currencies have a value assigned to them, just like any other type of money, with billions of dollars in digital money being transferred all the time. Bitcoin was one of the first and biggest forms of digital currency, but virtual currencies and other crypto options are starting to become more popular as well. Another fun fact for you, the first Bitcoin transaction was a pizza order on May 21st, 2010 for 10,000 Bitcoins. Now, the programmer Laszlo Hanyecz sent the Bitcoins to a volunteer in England who spent on a $25 order for that pizza for Hanyecz. Now, in today, as of April 2023, that pizza would have worth $300 million. So that was the first transaction. So with that in mind, as I said, I just want to take you briefly a little history, because it allows us, history teaches us lessons and allows us to show where we are now. And, you know, it's over the thousands of years, technology has improved, things have moved, but, you know, human nature doesn't change. So you can see what we did maybe in Roman Empire, we keep repeating the same mistakes. When we think about, for instance, British sterling was the most popular currency in early, like in 1900s, early 1900s, and then look at it now. I mean, still it's important, but it's not as important as many other currencies. So things have ebbs and flows, nothing is invincible, and things change. So with that in mind, what has been constant is our human greed and obviously the fear and these that they're intrinsic in us, and that allows us to do the things that sometimes we shouldn't do. And also it goes back to our psychology. So the second part, I like to spend some time, especially when we talk in the investment world and trading world, this all comes back to our beliefs about money, what kind of beliefs we have about that. So we learn about the mechanics of, again, let's say in investments and trading, we have a lot of knowledge, but then we have a self-sabotage, and we want to know the roots of that. So we could have all the knowledge, but yet still live in a poverty environment. So with that in mind, let's talk about one of the things that you always hear: money doesn't grow on trees. So where does it grow? Well, obviously, this is an implication of paper money comes from the trees, so it does grow on the trees. So some of the beliefs that we have, and I share that with you, and you can check it to see what you think, if you have those. And again, it applies to our trading, for instance. More money equals more happiness. More money, more problems. Higher price means higher quality. I can't save money when I don't make enough money. Most rich people probably did something bad or dishonest to get their money. Having a lot of money is a big responsibility. To be rich, you have to use people and take advantage of them. I'm too young to get rich, or I'm too old to get rich. It's not right for me to be rich while others have nothing. Investments are for people who have a lot of money. So you have to do a little soul searching here to see really where do you stand. And in your subconscious mind, something maybe has been installed that kind of triggers to not go above and beyond your potential. Another one, this is from Joe Vitale. You know, he wrote this. This is from the greatest money-making secrets in history. He has written this. I thought that was timely. The top 10 money-limiting beliefs. Number one, money is the root of all evil. And the actual quote is, the love of money is the root of all evil. I think this comes from Bible. If I'm successful, people will hate me. If I make $1 million, I might lose it, and then I would feel stupid and hate myself forever. There's not enough money to go around. If I have a little more than I need to get by, someone else has to go without. If I have a lot more than I need to get by, lots of people will have to go without. It is better to take less than to be responsible for someone else's hardship. Democrats punish the rich, political Republicans punish the poor. If I make a lot of money, I will be betraying my father who never made much money. So these are some common ones. Now, one misconception, again, is that's the reason I want to do this session. Basically, there's this misunderstanding about money. Money is a tool and it is a measurement, and it does bring, according, this is from researchers from Penn and Princeton, they have found out that actually money does correlate to greater happiness. And this is very recent, March 6, 2023. So it is how we use it, which is makes us either miserable or makes us, accomplishing something. So it is important to remember that. And based on that, that's why we want to have a healthy relationship with money. And as I mentioned, especially when you're in the investing world and trading world, it is, I would say, at least 50% of the problems that the traders, and this it is a cause of their failure, because they don't have a healthy relationship with money, which goes beyond that. It happens, as you know, in marital relationships, in friendships, and many other family relationships. Money, unfortunately or fortunately, plays a role. And the two things you have to look at is, and I mentioned about the attitude, but also, do we have this poverty mentality, which comes from fear of not having enough, not sharing, low self-value, feel like powerless victim, jealous of others, never having enough, always worried that things could go wrong. And these are limiting beliefs. So if you have these things, then our background comes from a poverty mentality. And that's what, before we get into trading or investing, we really have to resolve this, because and then it's, even when we go into relationships, it's better to resolve that. So if we understand this, then we'll have really unlimited sky to achieve things that we want to achieve. And in this situation is, again, if you are looking at the monetary things and through trading or investing, then, as I mentioned, it becomes limitless. The other side of things is a prosperity mentality. So some of the signs of the prosperity mentality is people who are generous. They're appreciative and grateful. They have a high self-value. They're open to universe to solve any issues. The universe or God or the higher power, they're really open. They ask for it. They know that money is just a tool. It's not the end of all. They are dreamers and they're positive. They know the why and what of what they're doing. And they're risk takers. So this is the prosperity mentality which attracts the wealth. Now, at the end, I just have to share this with you, is the three signs that if you have a poverty mentality or you have a prosperity mindset. If you have a poverty mindset, that's the time that you see people who blame others, they blame economy, they blame their work, business. They always look for excuses. And then what they do, they justify that the situation that they are in. For instance, a just simple situation is, I'm not making that money, but things are okay. I'm okay with it. Well, that's justification. Well, there's a lot of hardship. And then they complain. They justify and then they complain about their situation. So basically, these are the things that we have to work on. I just want to give you a tidbit, a little history of the money to see where we've come from, but how we can achieve a lot more and be limitless. Last but not least, I think this is a really sweet quote of, again, I would say prosperity mentality. Abundance and prosperity begins with gratitude and appreciation. And for everything that we have, our health, our wealth, our family, our friends, our work, and these are important, and that will attract wealth. With that in mind, I'll again, we'll stop this and we can open for the any questions, or actually I would like to hear any comments. So let me stop the recording and then can open up for